welcome to TerraNova, both on-site and online. We are stoked that you are joining us for this 4th of July weekend. And one thing we think about over the 4th of July weekend is America's independence. One thing I would challenge us to think about is our independence from our bad habits, our shame, and our sin because of the life and death of Jesus. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation. The old is gone and the new is here." We get to be a part of a new life. Jesus brought us back into this new life of freedom that we get to be with Jesus in. That reminds me of the song that we're about to sing with the band. So if you're on site at 7 Watney and you're able to, please stand up. If you're online, you can go to the TerraNova website or the TerraNova app to find the lyrics and sing along. Thank you for joining us this weekend.
I wandered through the darkness, wasting away. My soul was cold and hopeless, dead in the grave. Like a river of life in a dry land, like a flicker of sight to a blind man. I saw the glorious light as it broke in. God of mercy and might, oh, you brought me back to life. You're the Lord of light, shining in the dark. You're the source of life, beating in my heart. You're the living hope, you're the risen Christ. You restored my soul, oh, you brought me back to life. The brilliance of your glory awakens my soul. You give me grace and mercy, I give you control. Like a river of life in a dry land, like a flicker of sight to a blind man. I saw the glorious light as it broke in. God of mercy and might, oh, you brought me back to life. You're the Lord of light, shining in the dark. You're the source of life, beating in my heart. You're the living hope, you're the risen Christ. You restored my soul, oh, you brought me back to life. You brought me back to life. You are the resurrector, you conquered the grave. You pulled me from the water, free from my chains, and risen to live. Like a river of life in a dry land, like a flicker of sight to a blind man. I saw the glorious light as it broke in. God of mercy and might, oh, you brought me back to life. You're the Lord of light, shining in the dark. You're the source of life, beating in my heart. You're the living hope, you're the risen Christ. You restored my soul, oh, you brought me back to life. You brought me back to life. Oh, you brought me back to life. Oh, you brought me back to life. You brought me back to life. You brought me back to life. Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfire. It's singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies. These hallelujahs be multiplied. Oh, your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Oh, your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfire. Let's singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the sky. These hallelujahs be multiplied. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies. These hallelujahs be multiplied. These hallelujahs be multiplied. Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Oh, and your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfire. It's singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the sky. These hallelujahs multiplied. These hallelujah be multiplied. God, there's no amount of praise or worship that we could ever give, God, that would outshine your goodness, that would outshine all that you've done for us, God. We thank you that your mercy never ends, your grace never ends for us. You came to rescue us and to bring freedom to people just like us, God. You unravel me with a melody, and you surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again to your family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. You drown my fears in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. You drown my fears in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Oh, I am a child of God. Oh, forever I am a child of God.
Hey, would you bow with me as we pray together? Lord, thank you so much, God, for what you call us. Lord, you call us your kids. And Lord, we just want to receive, God, the love that you have for us, Lord. And we also want to receive the freedom that you have for us, God. And we think about that this weekend, Lord, on a national level, but really more importantly on a spiritual level, Lord. You have set us free from death and sin and shame. And so, Lord, we're just so grateful for that. And God, I just pray for each one of us, Lord, that you would use, God, these truths, Lord, and our freedoms so that we might be able to just to love you really well, and that we might be able to love and serve the people that are around us, God, day after day, Lord, in extraordinary ways, Lord. I pray you'd use the time that we have, Lord, as we join together, Lord, to move us in that direction, to move us in your direction, God. What a good direction it is, God. We want to say yes to that, and we give you thanks and praise for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Hey, well, welcome to TerraNova on this 4th of July weekend, whether you're online or on-site. And for you on-site folks, we'd love to have you go ahead and take a seat. And if you're, as you're sitting down, if you want to kind of look around and just, make some adjustments, if you need to make some adjustments just to make sure you got, the space that you need, which is great, it's fine. You can go ahead and do that because, something here at TerraNova is adjustment is the name of the game, man. We are just adjusting. And so that in just a wide variety of ways. And so one of the ways in which we have adjusted is through the Connect card that we love to do every week. Instead of doing a paper card, is that we do that on the TerraNova app. And so I'd like to invite you to go ahead and take your phone out and find the app and go ahead and spend a little bit of time with that Connect card because we'd really love to hear from you. We'd also really love to have you submit a prayer request that we can be praying for you for that request. So you can go ahead and take some time on the app and go ahead and dial that in. Also, the other big adjustment deals with just the giving that we have here at TerraNova, and we just love just to celebrate God's goodness through giving. And again, it's no longer passing a basket, but also using the app, and then some other different things that we do as well. Giving through the app is really easy. You can go ahead and do that. You can also give online at ourterranova.give. Find the website there. Or then you can mail a check to TerraNova here at 7 Watney. Also, if you're here on site, those of you that are here on site, we've got giving envelopes as well in the lobby that you can use. Because, it's just all about the adjustment, isn't it? And everybody's doing great, adjusting well, rolling with the punches. Man, it's just so great to be in a community that knows how to do that. And also, it's just so great to be in a community that just loves to give and has a heart just for our surrounding South County community. Because I just need to give you an update about something that we talked about last weekend. It's this transition house, the second transition house that we have started up in the northern end of Orange County. It's actually in LA County is where the new transition house is. And I just wanted to give you an update. We're doing these welcome home, welcome baskets. And we started off last week and everybody basically just grabbed baskets and bought baskets. And now we've got baskets that are beginning to flood in. And so, people are just killing it when it comes to the baskets. We're going to have plenty of baskets to put in the hands of these families that are going to be coming off the streets and into the transition home. So it's super great. Now, there's a number of different ways that we want to continue to play. One is if you got a basket, make sure that you bring it back sometime, either over the weekend or during the week. That's fantastic. But also go ahead and check out the app again, because we've got the app listed, the Welcome Home opportunity listed on the app, and they can tell you about the number of different ways to play. One of them is that you can still go ahead and get items. That would be fantastic, because we're going to want to build out some of these baskets to reflect the sizes of families that are going to come in. So we're always going to need some extra things to put in those baskets. So you can find the shopping list in the app, and you can go ahead and get some of those items. And then secondly, it's always great to give to the cause. Last week we talked and told you that a basket's going to run anywhere from $50 to $70. That's great. You can still give to that. And also just know that if our giving goes beyond what our need is there, and then the rest of those funds are going to go for the rest of the startup of the house. We need to do some things in the kitchen and some other things you can imagine. There's stuff that we need to get that house up and running. And so your giving to the project will go to that, and that'll be great. And then we've also got this Pack and Pray event that we're going to be doing with people that would like to come down and help us get those baskets kind of dialed in and ready to go. And so on the app, you can go ahead and get information on how to sign up for that. That'd be great. And also, just one last thing. This is new. Did you know that next weekend is that you're all are invited on a Sunday afternoon? It's going to be July 12th. 12th, we're going to have an open house at the new transition house before we've got our families that are going to go come in and to stay at the house, give you an opportunity to walk through the house, pray at the house, meet some of the leaders that are going to be the case managers of the house and other things. So we'll be giving you more information this week. You'll want to make sure that you keep your eye on the app and also on the website. We'll give you some information and instructions on how to do that. So Sunday afternoon, you guys will be dialed and ready to go. So super fun to be able to launch this second transition home. We're just really trusting that God's going to use that. And man, what a great thing for all of us just to be able to join God in his work. You know, that's just really where it's at. That's really where the fun's at, and that's the action. That's where the action's at, is to join God in what he's doing, and we get a chance to do that together. Well, again, just wanted to thank you all so much for joining us, and we are going to go ahead now and jump into part 4 of the series that we call Against the Flow.
We're watching online, for those of you who are watching in Village of Hope, perhaps, and to those who are in the room, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us this weekend as we are in part 4 of this series that's based on an ancient document found in the Hebrew Scriptures known as Daniel that we're calling Against the Flow. And in fact, Lyle was talking about having your phone out, following along on message notes. While you got it out, take a moment to share this maybe with some friends. If you're in the room, pull out your Facebook app, share this with some friends, tell them you're watching, invite them to watch along too, and bring some other people in on this. Now, because this story is actually rooted in actual history, a little bit of a historical setup might be helpful. In a series of 3 campaigns, beginning in 605 BC, then again in 597, and a third time in 586. So spanning about a 20-year period of time, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, conquers and eventually obliterates the city of Jerusalem, Daniel's hometown. And each time he goes there, he takes stuff. He takes some things back, and he takes some people back as trophies, as plunder. And his MO, Nebuchadnezzar's MO, widely attested throughout the ancient world, was that he would, cities and kingdoms he conquered, he would take the best and the brightest, the well-born and the educated. And education was rare in the ancient world. And he would take them back to Babylon as like high-ranking slaves or POWs, prisoners of war. And he would use them to serve in the administration of his empire. That was like his talent acquisition strategy. Like your company has a talent acquisition strategy, that was his. And it was in 605 BC, the first of these campaigns, that he takes Daniel and his 3 friends, Daniel's 3 friends, whose Hebrew names are Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, but we often know them better by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he takes them back as, again, rips them away from their homes, their families, drags them as POWs, marches them 1,000 miles across the desert back to his home city of Babylon, where they are stripped of their names, stripped of their heritage, indoctrinated and assimilated into Babylonian culture. They're given new names, Babylonian identity, new laws, new history, new language, and eventually they will be brought in to serve in the central government, to serve at the pleasure, get this, of the man who would eventually destroy their city, their home city, and kill many of the people that they grew up with, maybe even including some of their own family in that third campaign. And what is most interesting to me that I've said again and again throughout this series is that for 70 years, including a long period of time after Nebuchadnezzar has destroyed Jerusalem, for 70 years, Daniel served for the good of Babylon. For the good, for the benefit of Babylon. In fact, he was so good, so helpful in his advice, in his leadership, in his administration that he and his friends were often promoted eventually to the very highest echelons of political power. In other words, here's what we've been saying. They were for the city. I mean, you just got to think about that for a second. They were for the city, for the good of the city, for the benefit of the city, but they were often, when necessary, against the flow of culture. And the way we've been saying it in the city, in this series is they did not separate themselves from culture. They didn't do that. That's an option. They didn't fight to oppose the culture. They did not mindlessly assimilate into the culture. And then they didn't do this thing where it's like this private faith, public faith pendulum swing where it's like, oh, my faith is just private. It's personal. I believe in God, of course, but out in the public world, I need to do what I need to do to get by. They didn't do that either. And all four of those options are very common in Christian world. That is how a lot of people approach religion in one of those four ways. They did not. They found this other way, this way, I think, that so often escapes me, which is why I've been so excited about this series, because I think their stories have so much to teach us about how to live an authentic, non-obnoxious, respectful faith in a pluralistic world that is hostile at times to a worldview that follows God. And as we said last week, here's how we ended last week, or Scott ended last week, with this challenge that we would live as citizens of another kingdom, that we live as citizens of another kingdom, an eternal kingdom. But we live for the good and the benefit of the kingdom in which we live. Or as Jesus put it, we are in the world, and frankly, for the good of the world, but we are not necessarily of the world. And so today we're going to look at this fascinating story. By the way, next week's story, even better. And it's like part 2 of this week's story. But the reason why this story is passed on, the point of this story, I think, is so powerful and so relevant to us right now, today in culture. Now, this story is a little bit unique. It's unique because this next section that we're going to look at tonight is actually written by Nebuchadnezzar. Now, he's been a key character in the story all along, but this portion of Daniel's story is actually told from his perspective. Even more unique is that it begins with the end. The story begins with the end of the story and a letter that Nebuchadnezzar has written to his entire empire. And here's the letter Nebuchadnezzar wrote. King Nebuchadnezzar, to the nations and people of every language who live in all the earth, may you prosper greatly. It is my pleasure to tell you about the miraculous signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. And then here's the line that Nebuchadnezzar starts us off with that really is the punchline. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar finds out, not mine. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom, and his dominion endures from generation to generation. Nobody can or will stop it. Now, he backs up and he tells us his story. The year is around 580, maybe 575 BC. It's 25 or 30 years after Daniel and his friends have been taken. It's a number of years now since Jerusalem itself has been completely destroyed. And Nebuchadnezzar tells us his story. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at home in my palace, contented and prosperous. That's like the Orange County dream right there. I am at my home. I am prosperous. I am contented. It is my palace. I mean, that's the dream. I am in control. I am autonomous. I don't need anybody. I don't need anything. I got all I need. I was at home in my palace, contented and prosperous, and I had a dream. Nebuchadnezzar has another dream. A dream, he says, that made me afraid. I was lying in my bed, and the images and visions that passed through my mind terrified me. So he does what he does whenever there's something that needs interpretation, whenever he's got something that needs explanation or divination. Like, what's the meaning of this? What's the message of this? And you do this too, by the way. You do this too. You face things and you're like, I don't know what this means. Is this a sign? Am I supposed to know what this means? What is God trying to tell me? He would say, what are the gods trying to tell me? And he had a team of people he turned to, and I bet there are times you wish you had a team of people who are like experts in the field of figuring out the sign, right? And so he calls in his team. So I commanded that all of the wise men of Babylon, that's kind of the name of the magicians, enchanters, and the people who are learned in the magical arts, okay? He calls in the wise men of Babylon to be brought before me to interpret this dream, to tell me the meaning, give me the sign, right? So when they were, the magicians, the enchanters, the astrologers, the diviners came in, I told them the dream, but they could not interpret it for me. And perhaps, as we will see in the story, perhaps not because they could not figure it out, but perhaps because the dream is bad news. And Nebuchadnezzar is not the kind of guy that you tell bad news to. He has surrounded himself with sycophants. He has surrounded himself with people who tell him that he is awesome. But listen, we all need people in our lives who will tell us what we need to hear. A good friend of mine always used to say, everybody needs a Simon, referring to Simon Cowell, the American Idol guy. Like, everybody needs somebody who will tell them what they don't want to hear but need to hear. And for Nebuchadnezzar, I don't know who that is for you. For Nebuchadnezzar, that's Daniel. So finally, Daniel came into my presence and I told him the dream. Now, he's called Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, and the spirit of the holy gods is in him. And this is how Nebuchadnezzar continues to view Daniel, through these polytheistic and polytheistic lenses of his, which I think sometimes surprises people. It surprises us, like, has he not gotten it already? I mean, how does he not get it that his gods aren't God and Daniel's God is a God? But here's what you need to know, and this is kind of a side point. We're just going to step aside for a second. Nebuchadnezzar is on a spiritual journey. He is on a journey, and as with you and as with me, it often, almost always, I would say, just takes time to process. There's a step-by-step thing going on. It just takes time to work what we're hearing about God or thinking about God through the layers of all of our previous beliefs, through the fabric of our worldviews, and that's true of all of us. And up till now, he's just been taking what he's learning about Daniel's God, and he's fitting it in to his own worldview. And by the way, that's often what we do. We take what we think we're learning about God and we just fit it right into what we already believe. And that's what he's doing. And here's why that's important, because if you find yourself like on that kind of a process, and you might say, and maybe you're watching along or maybe you're in the room and you might say, I'm not really sure, like Nebuchadnezzar, like I'm not really sure what I believe. I'm not sure I believe about God what Daniel believes about God or what any of you believe about God. And if that's you, I just want to say, first of all, welcome. I'm so glad that you're listening or that you're here, that you're following along, because we built this place to help people figure God out in a way that makes sense to them, and we honor that journey. And here's what we say all the time that you need to know if that's where you're at, that you don't have to know everything to know something. You don't have to have it all figured out to take the next step spiritually. You don't have to believe everything in order to begin to believe something. And like Nebuchadnezzar, you can start to take next steps with what you're hearing or what you're processing, and you can begin to move toward God. That's what Nebuchadnezzar's doing. And by the way, just as another point, if you're talking to somebody who's on that process, like Daniel, if you're the Daniel part of this story, and if you tend to think it's not really a process, no, it's not really a process. It's more like a light switch. Like it's either on or it's off. It's one and done. They either get it or they don't get it. And you might be tempted to think that there's nothing happening because they don't yet believe what I believe. Like it's a failure. It's a waste. It's a failure to launch. And you might be tempted at times to engage that person where you think they should be, where they're not. But Daniel, this is so powerful to me. Daniel is always, always happy to engage Nebuchadnezzar right where he actually is. And that's what happens in this story. So Nebuchadnezzar calls Daniel in, and he tells Daniel the dream. I said, Belteshazzar, chief of magicians. That's Daniel's title. He's the chief of the magicians. I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you. And again, Daniel doesn't correct him. He doesn't rebut them or like, oh no, Nebuchadnezzar, see, it's actually the spirit of the God, singular, the one true God, and all your gods are false. He doesn't pick a fight. He doesn't waste energy on sideways movement. He just wants to point Nebuchadnezzar to God. So Nebuchadnezzar's is like, I know the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and there's no mystery too difficult for you. So here's my dream. Interpret it for me. These are the visions that I saw while I was lying in my bed. I looked, and there before me stood a tree. And it was in the middle of the land. It's like in the center of the vast, this vast land. Its height is enormous. The tree grew large and strong. Its top touched the sky, and it was visible to the ends of the earth. He says, oh, this tree, it was beautiful. The leaves were beautiful. Its fruit abundant. It was aesthetically pleasing. It was helpful and beneficial. It was food for all. Under it, the beasts of the field found shelter. The birds of the air lived in its branches. Now, this we know now as we're processing through Daniel. This is Genesis 1 language. This is Genesis 1 language that God created human beings in his image to rule over creation as reflections of his own character and goodness in the way that he himself rules. And that includes, in Genesis 1, the beasts of the field and the birds of the air. And even the language of the tree is kind of being brought. This is Genesis 1 kind of stuff. Now, and then he says, and from it every creature was fed. Now, the tree was also common ancient Mesopotamian iconography. The tree was also common in Mesopotamian literature and art as a symbol of like the divine world order managed or maintained by the king. And so this is actually a part of the dream that we would expect all of Nebuchadnezzar's advisors to be able to interpret. This was common stuff. But what happens next is where the story gets, well, kind of weird. Here we go. In the visions I saw while lying in my bed, I looked, and there before me was a holy one, a messenger coming down from heaven. Now, that word messenger is literally the word watcher. There are watchers, which is creepier, isn't it? So let's use that word, watcher. So I'm laying in my bed, and there's this watcher, and the watcher is coming down from heaven, and he calls out in a loud voice, cut down the tree. Cut it down and trim off its branches, strip off its leaves, scatter its fruit, let the beasts flee from under it and the birds from its branches, but let the stump, don't ground down the stump, let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field, and let him, it's like, okay, wait a minute, it's a him? So the tree's a him? Yeah, the tree is a him. Let him be drenched with the dew of heavens. Like he's outdoors and it's raining on him and he's living out. Let him live with the beasts among the plants of the earth, and let his mind be changed from the mind of a man, from the mind of a human, and let him be given the mind of a beast till 7 times pass by for him. Oh, what does this mean? The decision is announced by the watchers. There they are again. By the watchers, the holy ones declare the verdict so that the living may know that the Most High is sovereign over all the kingdoms on earth, and he gives them to anyone he wishes, and he sets over them, get this, the lowliest of people, the lowliest of people. By the way, that is a consistent theme in the scriptures, that God often just does not choose the best and the brightest and the cream of the crop, the most deserving, the top dog. He often chooses the underdog. In fact, it is a statement he made again and again to the nation of Israel. I did not choose you because you were best and biggest. I chose you because you were the least. He sets over them the lowliest of people, not something Nebuchadnezzar is used to being called, by the way. So Nebuchadnezzar recounts his dream. He says, this is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now, Belteshazzar, tell me what it means, for none of my wise men in my kingdom can interpret it for me, but you can. Oh, I know you can, because here we go again. The spirit of the holy gods is in you. And Daniel standing there, listening to this dream, and his face goes pale. The blood rushes out of his face. And Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, he was stunned. He just stands there. He can't speak. His thoughts terrified him. So the king starts to try to encourage Daniel. Belteshazzar, he's like, come on, Belteshazzar, can't be that bad. Come on, tell me what it means, bro. Like, don't hold out. Just go ahead, spit it out. I know you know what's going on. But here's the thing. Daniel knows this is bad news. But what's so interesting to me, again, there are moments in the story that just fascinate me because it's so genuine. This is so interesting. Belteshazzar answers, "My Lord, if only the dream applied to your enemies and its meaning to your adversaries." And Daniel, and this is just amazing to me at least, Daniel is for Nebuchadnezzar. He's for him. He wants good things for him. He is for the benefit of Nebuchadnezzar, which makes me just say, take a moment to think about that. Run your personal relationships through that grid. Run the people who might have destroyed your hometown or maybe just your job, or run people through that grid for just a second and think, am I for them? Would I wish that this news was for their enemies and not for them? It's amazing because it's genuine. And then he gives them the interpretation. The tree which you saw, which grew large and strong, its top touching the sky, visible to the whole earth with beautiful leaves and abundant fruit, providing food for all, giving shelter to the wild animals, or literally, again, the beasts of the field, and having nesting places for the birds of the air. Your Majesty, the tree, it's you. You are that tree. And you, Nebuchadnezzar, your Majesty, you've become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky. You have been given an incredible opportunity, an incredible gift. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky. Your dominion, or your kingdom, if you will, extends to distant parts of the earth. And then Daniel goes on to recount the dream to him. He says, "So your Majesty, you saw the Holy One, this watcher, the weird thing, coming down from the heavens saying, 'Cut down the tree and destroy it. Leave the stump bound in iron and bronze in the grass of the field while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be drenched with the dew of the field. Let him live with the animals till 7 times pass him by.'" He kind of tells him his dream again. And then he says, "And this is the interpretation. Your Majesty, and this is the decree that the Most High has issued against my Lord the King. You will be driven away from people. You will live with the beasts. You will eat grass like the ox. You will be drenched with the dew of heavens," meaning you will live outdoors. And Nebuchadnezzar is like, "Okay, you mean like metaphorically?" And Daniel's like, No, this is literal. "And 7 times will pass for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all the kingdoms on earth, and he gives them to anyone he wishes." In other words, until you acknowledge that it's not yours. That it's not yours, it's his, and it is a gift. It is a gift that has been given to you. Nebuchadnezzar, until you acknowledge that power and influence and leadership and position and wealth and skill and wisdom and greatness, all of the greatness that you have, it is, and here's the word for you, it is derivative. It's derivative, meaning it's derived from God. It all belongs to God. It all belongs to him, and it all comes from him. It is a stewardship, and you have been given an opportunity, and until you acknowledge that, until you acknowledge that it's all his and not yours, and that you have been given a gift, then you will live like a beast. But here's the good news. The command to leave the stump, the tree with its roots bound in iron and bronze, are like, what's that part? Here's what that part means. They didn't ground down the stump. There's still something left. And when, it means that your kingdom will be restored when you acknowledge, and I love this phrase, that heaven rules. That heaven rules. That God rules, not you, not me. So he's finished with the interpretation, and then here comes the application. And Daniel gets real personal right now. And he says, "Therefore, your Majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Please listen, please accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right." Here's the point of the story, by the way, found right in the middle of the story, as Daniel often puts his point. Right in the middle of the story, here's the point. Renounce your sin. Turn around, turn the bus around, and the way you do it is by doing righteousness, by doing the right thing, the right way, for the right people, that you do things, that you make things right, that you become motivated not by your success or your big ego or what'll be popular or what'll make you more comfortable or what'll be easier, but you've had these moments, right, in your life where you just thought, okay, what's the right thing to do here? I know it's not what I want to do. I know it's not the easy thing to do. I know it's not what some other people want me to do. I don't even want to do it. But I think I know what the right thing to do is. He says, you need to turn the bus around. And the way you do that is you just start doing the right thing. You start doing the right thing, and specifically start doing the right thing for those who are most easily taken advantage of. And the second line builds upon the first one by showing mercy to the oppressed. That's how you, in other words, this isn't about theoretical humility. This isn't about feeling humble, like, I know I've been getting a little too big for my britches. This is practical. This is rubber meets the road. This is about seeing power as a gift. This is about seeing advantage as a gift. This is about seeing our skills, our wisdom, our influence, our privilege, if you will, as a gift and as a stewardship to be used for the benefit of other people. Ken Blanchard, business author, very popular, defines ego as edging God out. It's like that's what ego is all about. It's edging God out. And the temptation of ego is to say to myself, this, fill in the blank, whatever it is, this is from me and this is for me. This position, this power, this influence, this money, this wealth, these resources, this skill, this achievement, this thing I've done, this success, this opportunity, this advantage, this thing that I have, it is from me. And ego rewrites our story and leaves God out of it. Ego tempts us to say, I did this, I worked hard, I fought hard, I'm smart, I studied hard, I'm clever, I'm strong, I'm gifted, I saw the opportunity, I jumped in and took advantage. When other people didn't, I took risks that other people didn't, I studied all night and other people didn't. I did this is from me, so I deserve this. And I don't know if you've ever heard anyone kind of talk like that. I don't know if you've ever heard yourself talk like that or maybe think like that, but ego rewrites our story and it leaves God out like we got ourselves here. Like we did this for us. I am a self-made man. It is all and only me. And once we say it is from me, it is natural to say it is for me. And ego tempts us to say, this is all from me and this is all for me. But the principle of stewardship, this idea of stewardship turns that around and says, no, this, whatever this is, it's actually from God. It's actually from God. It's all from God. It's a gift. In fact, this is a theme, a consistent theme throughout Daniel's story, that God created us in his image. We are made in the image of God to rule over creation, to exercise influence and leadership and creativity and skill and wisdom, to rule as reflections of him in our jobs, with our workmates, at home, with family and extended family, in our cities, in our world, that we would exercise influence and leadership and creativity and wisdom as reflections of who he is. That the way we do it would reflect the character and the goodness of God. In fact, in week 2 of the series, if you were following along in the series, if not, go back and check out week 2 of the series. This was the whole theme of the story of the great statue, the great image, if you will, of multiple metals, right? This weird dream that Nebuchadnezzar has. And it becomes not only the theme of that story, but the theme of Daniel's life. And Daniel says in the middle of that story, he sings a little song to God. And as he wakes up and he realizes he knows what the dream is, and he sings a little song, and the song says, wisdom and power are yours. Wisdom and power are yours, and you shared a little bit with me. You've given me a little bit of your incredible wisdom and a little bit of your power, and it's not mine. It's not mine. It's yours. It's derivative. It comes from you. It's been shared with me, and so I am going to hold that wisdom and that power you've given me like that. I'm going to hold it in open hands. I'm going to hold it loosely, and I am going to use it for the benefit of others. I'm a steward. I'm a steward. And a steward says, I will leverage all I have. I will leverage everything I have as if it is a gift for the benefit of others. So Daniel says to Nebuchadnezzar, you got to do that. You got to do that. You got to use your power. It's a gift that's been given to you. You've got to use your advantage, all of that privilege you have. It's been a gift to you. It is a gift. And you don't feel guilty for a gift. Like, how do you want somebody to feel when you give them a gift? You don't want them to feel guilty. No. What do you want them to feel? Grateful and generous. And he goes, you've got this amazing gift. Use it. Use it to advance what is right and particularly to bring mercy and kindness to the people who need it the most. And it just might be, Nebuchadnezzar, if you do that your prosperity will continue and this dream might not happen to you. But as the story goes, turns out it all did. All of this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar 12 months later. So a full year goes by. 12 months later, as the king is walking on the roof of his royal palace, he said, "Is this not the great Babylon that I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" And if this was a movie, this would be the part where the audience goes, "No! Like, do not go in there. Do not walk through that. Do not go down the stairs. Are you kidding me right now?" It's that moment where you just go, he did not just say that, did it? Did he? In other words, here's what he says. Is this not from me and for me? Now, here's the kicker. Nebuchadnezzar did build Babylon. We know this from history, and it was great. See, the entire city was completely destroyed 100 years earlier in a war with the Assyrians, completely destroyed, and his dad, Nabopolassar, had started to rebuild it, but it was Nebuchadnezzar who built this brand new, huge, beautiful, technologically, architecturally advanced city, a city that Herodotus, an ancient historian, comes about 150, 200 years after Nebuchadnezzar. He wrote in ancient manuscripts that Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon surpasses the splendor of any city in the known world. Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon included not one, but two of the seven wonders of the ancient world, including the Hanging Gardens, which you've probably heard of, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar built those in the middle of a desert. It's like Vegas. He built the Hanging Gardens in the middle of the desert for his wife, who was homesick for the mountain gardens of her homeland. It's like, happy birthday, honey. Here's one of the wonders of the seven wonders of the ancient world. And the walls of Babylon was the second. And we just talked about them a little bit in week 1, 80 feet wide, 320 feet high, going for miles and miles and miles and miles. It included the tallest building in the world. It was an incredible, incredible, beautiful city. It was exceptional in every regard. And Nebuchadnezzar wanted everybody to know it and wanted everybody to know that he built it. And so he had his name printed on almost every brick used in the city. Millions of bricks have been unearthed around ancient Babylon bearing the stamp of his name. Is this not the great Babylon? Is this not from me and for me? And here's the challenge. I think this is a challenge, a real challenge for many of us, if not all of us. And yeah, Nebuchadnezzar's example might be a bit extreme, but ego always tempts us to say, isn't this from me? And isn't this for me? Well, even as the words were on his lips, a voice came from heaven. I think it's another one of those creepy watchers saying, "This is what was decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken away because it was given to you. It has been taken away from you, and you will be driven away from people, and you will live like the beast, or with the beast, and you will eat grass like an ox. 7 times will pass for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all the kingdoms of the earth, and he gives them to anyone he wishes. It will be taken from you because it was given to you." It's a stewardship. It's a stewardship. It's a stewardship. It's all a stewardship, and it's temporary. Everything that ever passes through your life passes through your hands temporarily. You hold it for a while, a week, a month, a handful of years, and you are accountable for how you handle it as it's in your hands. It is a stewardship, and it is temporary. And immediately, what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar is fulfilled. And he's driven away from people, and he ate grass like an ox, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew really matted and thick like feathers from an eagle, and his nails like the claws of a bird, which is weird, right? I mean, that is just weird. But there's actually a mental condition known as boanthropy. It's a well-documented mental condition where a person believes that they are a cow or an ox, as the Watcher said. you will lose your human mind and you will be given the mind of a beast. In other words, it's almost like God is saying, if you will not act like a true human, like a human created in my image, if you will not act like a true human, you don't get to be human. It's like, whoa, I am really glad that doesn't happen very often. And instead of ruling over what I've given you in my image, reflecting my image, he becomes like one of the beasts and one of the birds. It's this reversal of Genesis 1. Well, verse 34, at the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes towards heaven, and my sanity was restored. He has in what's called in 12-step circles a moment of clarity. He has this, it's steps 1 through 3 that happen next. He has this moment of clarity where he looks up to heaven and his sanity is restored. And then I praised the Most High. I bet he did. I bet he did. Then I praised the Most High and I honored and glorified him who lives forever. Here we go again. His dominion is an eternal dominion. Mine is not. Everything is just temporary. It's all just temporary. His kingdom endures from generation to generation, not mine. I have and you have one generation. That's all we get. One generation, it passes through our hands. It will all pass out of our hands. One generation to steward what has been given to you, what has been given to me. And so he says, as the story ends, so now I, Nebuchadnezzar, I praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who lead or exercise influence or wield skill or power or authority or wisdom or wealth in the image of their Creator, they do what is right and just as well. And by the way, those who walk in pride, those who are filled with ego, he is able to humble. Fade to black. To be continued next week. Do not miss next week. And really what is part 2 of this story. But also, do not miss what Daniel would want you to not miss, the takeaway or the point of this story. That though ego always tempts us to edge God out of the picture, this is from me and this is for me and this is mine. Stewardship reshapes our thinking to see everything as a gift. Everything is a gift. Relationships, wealth, opportunity, advantages. To see everything that this is like from God and therefore it is for others. And I have been given a measure of power. So have you. I have been given a measure of influence. Not as much as he had, but I've been given a measure of skill and of wisdom. I have been given a measure of advantage. I've been given a measure of resources. I've been given a measure of, here's a word we're using a lot these days, of privilege. I've been given that, and they're gifts. And how do you feel when somebody gives you a gift? How do I want to feel when someone gives me a gift? Guilty? Oh, that's weird. No, grateful. Grateful and generous. And if you don't think you have any of those things, can I just say, I hate to tell you this, you're wrong. You're wrong. We have all been born, all of us, with a degree of privilege. God has given every single one of us a measure of talent and wisdom and skill and opportunity, and they're his. It's all his. It's all derivative, but he shares it freely, and he shares it eagerly with his creations who are made in his image. He wants us to have them, and so I will leverage all that I have for the benefit of others. That is the lesson of chapter 4 of Daniel. I am going to leverage everything I have, everything that's been given, everything that's been placed in my hands for the benefit of others, for the benefit of those around me, to make their lives better. And by the way, taken from Daniel's words to Nebuchadnezzar, especially those who do not have all of the privilege or advantage or opportunities or wealth or skill or power or position or influence that I have. And by the way, this is what is ultimately modeled in the way of Jesus. This is who Jesus is. This was modeled by him like none other. Paul, the Apostle Paul, says in Philippians 2 that though being in the very nature of God, I mean, talk about privilege, talk about advantage, talk about power, talk about position, talk about influence, being in the very nature of God, he did not consider equality with God something to be grasped or held onto or used for his own advantage. Instead, he emptied himself. he made himself nothing, taking on the form of a servant. By the way, your servant and my servant, placing himself beneath us to do for us what we could not do for ourselves. In other words, he disadvantaged himself in a significant way for our advantage, even to death on a cross. And Jesus came to inaugurate a new kingdom. In the words of Nebuchadnezzar, an eternal kingdom. And Nebuchadnezzar didn't even know who he was talking about when he said that. A new kingdom, an eternal kingdom that was unlike all of the kingdoms, including Nebuchadnezzar's of this world, where the king lays down his life for his subjects. An upside down kingdom where the first would make themselves last, and the last would become first, where power would be leveraged for people who don't have power, and resources would be leveraged for people who are under-resourced. And influence would be leveraged for people who don't have a voice, who don't have influence, because the subjects of this kingdom, which are, by the way, the followers of Jesus, just see things differently. They see like their king sees through the lens of leadership, or of stewardship, that says, it's a gift. It was all a gift. Everything that passed into my hands, it was a gift. It was a gift. It was not from me, and it is not, I'm just so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful. And I want to be so generous. So I will leverage all that I have for the benefit of the people around me, for the benefit of the people who passed by me and passed through my life, and especially for the benefit of those who were not given what I was given. So I'll just end with a question and then we'll close in prayer. Where do you have some influence? No fair saying you don't have any, because you do. You probably have more influence than you think you do. Where do you have some influence? With whom do you have some influence? Where do you have some advantages? Where do you have some privilege? No fair saying you don't, because you do. See, the question is not whether you have privilege. Of course you do. Look at you. I mean, you're awesome. You're beautiful. You're amazing. And look where you live. And look when you live. I mean, to be here now, of course, you have some privilege. And the question is not whether you have privilege. Of course you do. The question is certainly not whether you should feel guilty about it. Jesus didn't. And he had way more privilege than any of us. He didn't feel guilty. He was a steward. The question is, how will you steward it? How will you steward it? How will you use it? Will you walk through this life like Daniel decided he was going to walk through his life? With open hands, holding all that you've been given out like this, available to God and available to others. And will you use all that you've been given for the benefit of other people, especially those who have less? Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, what an amazing story. Thank you for that. I just pray for myself, especially, and for all of us, that you would give us the ears to hear what we needed to hear from that, because it would be so easy to start to rebut and object and push back, to hear it, to get it inside of us, what we needed to hear, that you would give us the wisdom to know what to do with it, and that you would give us the grace and the power this week to walk out into our world that is so hurting, so broken, with these open hands filled with all of your goodness, just feeling so grateful and so generous for all you've given us. And I pray that as we do so, we would become like you, Jesus. We would become a blessing to everyone who crosses our paths. And I pray that in Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us. Before you go, as we always say, make sure you take a second and fill out that Connect card, especially if you're watching us online, because we just love to know you're there. It's always kind of hard to know who's out there. So if you would just let us know that you're here, let us know how we can be praying for you. Let us know if there's anything that we can do for you to walk through this season of life with you. We'd love to hear from you. Just fill out on the app or on the website if you're watching on our watch page. And then, as Lyle mentioned, the generosity of this community has been so incredible. There are a few different ways to give on the app, on our website of the give page, and of course, dropping off checks at TerraNova, which we see people every week. It's really kind of fun. You drop by, we get to say hi to you, because we're lonely. We're here all alone all the time. So this is our house. This is where we live. And I don't know if you knew that. And then you can grab some envelopes on your way out as well and use those. And finally, this is the week to make sure you get those baskets back. So if you grabbed one and you haven't gone online or to Target or Walmart or where you're going to go, bring those baskets back next week filled up with great stuff. You can give towards the baskets, as Lyle said, on the app. Just designate Lavish Love. That's the way to do that. And as Lyle was saying, you can join the Build-A-Basket team on the app as well. All of that is available to you. It's an awesome project. I love the fact that we're doing this, and I love the fact that so many of you are in it and you've got skin in the game. And again, do not miss next week. It is part 2 of this series. It is seriously one of the best stories in the book of Daniel. You won't want to miss it. God bless you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next weekend.